Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Reframeable Podcast, the podcast that brings you people's stories and ideas about how we can work to reframe our relationship, not just with alcohol, but with stress, anxiety, relationships, enjoyment, and so much more. Because changing our relationship with alcohol is about so much more than changing the contents of our glass. This podcast is brought to you by the Reframe app. Reframe is the #1 iOS and Android app to help you cut back or quit drinking alcohol. It uses neuroscience to reframe your relationship with alcohol and unlock the healthiest, happiest you. My name is Kevin Bellack. I'm a certified professional recovery coach and the head of coaching at the Reframe app.
And I'm Emma Simmons. I'm a reframer, a certified life coach and thrive coach with Reframe, and I'm from New Zealand. And today we're excited to welcome Meredith, the founder of Clean Coaching Mama. Meredith's journey from New York advertising executive to pediatric speech language pathologist and now health coach has inspired her passion for holistic wellness. As a mother, she's dedicated to helping families reduce toxic exposures and embrace practical, healthier lifestyle choices. Meredith joins us to share her insight on her sobriety and wellness journey. Meredith, welcome.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here with you guys. Talking all things sobriety and wellness, my favorite topics.
Ours too.
Yes, yeah. Wide open too.
Yeah,
covers a
lots
lot
to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
thanks
I guess
for being on with us today. Sorry, Go ahead.
Yeah.
Kevin and I are terrible at talking over top of it.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at talking over top of everyone. Sorry.
I have a 5-year-old. We're working on interrupting in this house all the time. So I'm right there.
I thought we'd just jump right into it and kick off with what led you to sobriety. How did that come about?
I'll try to give you the condensed version, right? It's welcome to an hour TED Talk. So I've been sober I celebrated 13 years in January. So I guess about 13 and a half years. Side note, my husband is actually 15 years sober, but this is my story. But we're very much a sober house, and it's very much the foundation of our life and our family. But in terms of what brought me there, I was one of these people that it wasn't like I started drinking and it just got bad fast. I really wasn't. I was very much a progressive drinker, always partied, but I was more focused on trying to get good grades and trying to get a good job and like this plan, this vision I had that I thought I had for my life in college in my early 20s. But I was still very anxiety prone, very fearful, and just really like self-conscious. And some of that social anxiety started creeping in, but I'm an extrovert by nature. So it was like that duality. And I moved to New York after college. And I say this, drinking was fun for years. I had a great time. 20 something in New York City. It's like literally so fun. I'm 45 now. So that was a long time ago. Pre-social media, thank goodness, pretty much. It progressed. And we'll get into this probably a little bit more later, but at least for me, we tend to surround ourselves with people who drink like us. And it's hard to delineate college partying from like problematic drinking, right? Or even honestly, like that 20-something New Yorker, like after work drinks, client drinks, and entertaining lunches, all that with problem drinking. But the blackouts started happening. Anxiety became a much bigger part of my story. I had to do presentations for work and I started getting panic attacks. I started taking anxiety medicine. I'm very open about sharing that anxiety meds are a big part of my story. And I joke like a lot of the looking back jokes that it was such a blessing because it escalated my addiction story much faster. And it didn't leave me like decades of wondering, do I have a problem? Do I not? It became pretty freaking clear. But yeah, I was like that person taking Klonopin with a therapist prescription, eventually using Xanax as needed, all with therapists signing off on it, but drinking all the time. And people like my family was down in North Carolina still, and friends would talk about, and I'm sure you guys know that inner sort of the despair of, what am I doing? Like not remembering nights, ending up staying places with people you don't know, just all that stuff, right? And eventually getting in a relationship that was basically with another alcoholic, as we sometimes do, and just a bunch of, just drunken debauchery. Like they say, that your standards lower, like obviously we justify, we rationalize, we lie about how much we're drinking. We think that if we're not as bad as other people we know, we don't have a problem and all of that. But at the same time, my behavior got crazier. My standards were certainly diminishing. And I ended up getting fired from a job I'd had for 3 months at Fast Company, which is a really great business brand, because I was like a blazing idiot the whole time. I like showed up for a big meeting after having a couple vodka sodas. And at that point I was popping the Xanax. So I don't even remember the meeting. Taking long lunches, calling in late. I joke that I had so many vet related. I had an English bulldog back then, but she had so many ailments that I had to deal with that would keep me home and just stuff like that. Got fired from the job, which the funny thing about it, and this is such a ding red flag for me, that I obviously had an atypical relationship with alcohol and had for years, but I remember having that conversation in the conference room, and literally they're like, do you want us to we can expand upon it further, or why it's not a good fit? And I was like, nope, I'm good. And all I thought was, I want to go get a cocktail. And I was like, all right, this is like divine intervention. I've been wanting to go to grad school. I wanted to get out of this corporate world because at the time I thought New York City was the problem. I thought the pace, the competition, the super high standards, my publishers, whatever. I thought all of that was the problem, the relationship. So I was like, all right, onwards and upwards, and started like looking into grad schools, and I was thinking about like social work, and which is funny, the irony that I like wanted to help people when I was like completely falling apart, but as we often do, externalizing my inner spiral. But I ended up having a breakup, an upteenth breakup with that relationship. And we lived together in a small apartment in Hoboken at the time. And I came home to North Carolina, like I say, with my tail between my legs to regroup. And I still thought, despite all of the, like, really the wreckage of drinking that was going on, I still thought that anxiety was the problem. So from that point, when I came home to North Carolina, it was about another 8 to 10 months before I got sober. So I had a therapist suggest staying away from drinking. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's not a problem. What do you mean? She's, a lot of your stories seem to involve drinking or like meeting somebody for drinks, and she suggested that. I was very offended. And she eventually suggested I try going to recovery meetings. I was, again, very offended. My parents, who I was living with, 30 years old, 31, wanted me to go to recovery meetings. And I finally did, to appease everybody. And I just wasn't convinced. I wasn't done. However we get sober, I feel absolutely certain, right, that we all have to have a point at which we're like, okay, I can't do this. I get it, right? Call it the gift of desperation, call it our bottom, call it the point of surrender, whatever. And I just wasn't there. And people can't really convince you of that. I did 30 days at a treatment center, which who would have thought? I had so much ego, and I was so distorted in my thinking of like how sick I was and how screwed up I had gotten at that point. But yeah, I did 30 days at a treatment center. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that because this was before I got married, before I had kids. I was in this like pre-grad school phase. And then after some attempts of trying to do controlled drinking myself that didn't work for me, I finally was like dramatic tears, long emails to all the girls I met in recovery who were always there for me and so helpful, many of whom are still friends of mine 14 years later. And I was like, that's it. Okay, I'm really done this time. And then the long manifesto. And then everything changed. And that was January, 13 and a half years ago.
Wow.
And I've been in the recovery community since. Yeah.
That's so awesome that you've spent so awesome that it wasn't the way you explained. It wasn't a like on-off switch. It wasn't like I need to do this. I need to get sober. Boom, done. We're doing it. It was like there were nuggets of people being like, hey, are you okay? I think you need help. And you were going, no, I drink like everyone else. I'm fine. And it was like a gradual burn and a gradual increase until it got to the point where you yourself were like, oh shit, I got to do something about this. And then it worked. And then it happened. I think that's a really great narrative to have, that it does need to come from yourself to make that change. And then
Yeah.
also knowing that you're still in the recovery community, not
Yeah.
still as in a bad way, still as in a, yes, it's awesome to keep building this community that we have. Yeah.
Oh, that I want to be in it. It's funny, like in fact, I was listening to another one of your podcasts, and I hear stories like this a lot and sober stories from people. I'm envious of people, I suppose, who can just say, yeah, I drank a little too much wine at night. And I have people in my life who I'm very open about my story after this many years. And when people talk about their drink, I'm like, for me, it had to get pretty bad. But for some people, it doesn't have to. I mean, it looks different for everybody.
Yeah. You
And
need for them to like,
yeah,
oh, I just have,
be like, I actually have to do something.
I'm going to stop, and they cut it off before it
Yeah,
gets
that
to,
some people are like, I had too much.
Yeah.
I was just tired of being a little hungover, and I'm a mom. And I'm like, hats off to you. That's great.
And I think that's,
So glad you caught it early.
Yeah. Because I think that needs to be shown more too, because
100%.
I think too much, it's like that black and white thinking. I talk about this all the time and I get annoyed with it, but it's like the black and white thinking that is I get annoyed with of I have a problem or I don't. It's like, no, it's called gray area drinking for a reason. There's a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Whatever.
It's like they're all signs, and it is most likely an elevator going down.
Yeah.
It might stay on the same floor for 10 years.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
But we can make that change at any point. It doesn't have to get to, oh, I have a problem before we say, you know what, I'm just not going to drink as much, or I'm not going to drink at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard one. I feel like, because when people talk to me about it, I'm like, I can hear somebody's story and I can hear their drinking and I can hear the way they talk about it and the phrases they use and just what I know now. I can almost, it's like you spot it, you got it. But I truly know it's, hey, I am always here to help anybody. But I can't say when that is your time, if and when, and God willing, you get to a point where you want to do. But as you guys know, when you live on the side of freedom and you live in all of the freedom of sobriety, it's like you just there's nothing more painful than watching somebody who you can tell is fighting that they probably need to do something, right? But they're not ready yet. And it's just, man, talk about instant gratitude.
I think that's one of the, I don't know, I find it a really difficult part of coaching is when you can see further down the track and you're like, okay, come on, pick up what I'm putting down. Like, we're going to do something about this, but you do need to go at that person's pace of their realization. But come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's pick this up. We're going to do something about this, but you've got to wait for the person for the client to jump on board. And then once they do jump on board, how fun is it to be like, "Wait, off we go."
Well, fun. And that's what you said. It's so nice that this many years later, I'm still involved in the recovery community. And I wanted to jump in on that because this is another thing I hear. It'll be like, gosh, you have to go to those meetings or you have to be in doing these things or whatever. And it's like, no, I truly want to. Like the things I do for my sober life and participating in life as a sober mom and being a part of, that's such a gift. I don't do it anymore because I have to. I truly want to. It's like a sentence when we first are confronted with having to get sober or look at our drinking. It feels like that. It certainly did to me. I was not somebody who thought sobriety sounded fun. So we're faced with, and that's one of my messages to people is to just believe that sobriety can be fun. Sober life can be. It's all that cheesy stuff you hear, like beyond your wildest dreams, write down everything you thought would ever happen, and it'll all come true. And but it is remarkable how true that's been for me.
Yeah, we don't believe it, right? Because for me, I drank 20 years. People drink much more than that too before they might start addressing it. But I didn't know a different way. I started in college, and my college binge drinking on weekends became I started in a public accounting firm, Big Four, and deadlines and weekend drinking, deadline drinking. It was a similar drinking style. I didn't see a different way. I never did all the things without alcohol because it was always there at every event, at every little thing. And I didn't see a different Kevin doing those things. So I was like, that was fun back then. If I take that one ingredient out, how is that going to work? So it is proving to ourselves, and almost we have to trust people, I think, and I think that's one of the tips I will throw out is trust that I'm not full of shit, right? Trust that all these people aren't just lying to you, but it's not easy. It is finding out for yourself how that can work for you.
Yeah.
Because everybody is different. You mentioned about still almost getting to go to meetings and things like that still. And it's like, I started out with a therapist and I'm still with her. I don't need to go to her and talk with her on a regular basis to not drink. I can stop and not drink and be fine with that. But it helps. Like, it's a good check-in. It's a good way to work through other things and so on. It shifts from that, I have to do this to start and to keep going, into that, no, this is part of what I do now to help me stay on track.
Right.
And when I think about, I've never been part of a team or a group really, but there are people out there who have like their social netball team. You guys don't play netball in America. Social soccer team or social basketball team or social whatever team, and they stick with that team for years and years. And your sobriety team or your sobriety community is like that. You get to go and hang out with people who you genuinely care about and genuinely have a good time chatting with. So why would you think, oh, I'm only going to go to meetings for 6 months, or when can I stop going to meetings is a question that I get often, like when will I be fixed, or when will I be cured? And let's build this community, let's build this group of friends and this network that you genuinely want to be around and spend time with, just like your social, I don't know, what clubs do you guys have over there? Netballs, the only thing that's coming to mind.
I'm still stuck. Yeah, we're gonna stop here for a second and talk about netball.
Okay.
So netball is the
NET,
I guess, like,
right?
NET. Yeah,
Okay.
netball. So it's like the national, predominantly female sport, but we do now have men's netball teams. So like in New Zealand, when we were a kid growing up, if you were a boy, you played rugby. If you were a girl, you played netball. It's a winter sport. It's played, well, when you're a kid at primary school, it's played out on a asphalt turf, like a concrete turf outside, like basketball, but the ball's smaller. You don't bounce the ball, you don't run with the ball. As soon as you catch the ball, you've got to plant your feet. There are 7 players on the court at one time. There's a hoop, just like basketball, but there's no backboard. So when you're shooting, you can't rebound off the backboard. That's a non-contact sport, but I have some significant scars on my knees that prove otherwise.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm to look it up. Wow.
Yeah.
I got it up on the screen. I was gonna say, I got it up on the screen right now on Wikipedia, and I'm like, this looks like basketball without a backboard.
Yeah, but yeah, you can't run with the ball. So as soon as you catch the ball, you got to plant your feet and pass it.
Oh.
But holy moly!
Way to America yet?
It must be. But yeah, it's big in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa.
Do you play basketball in New Zealand?
We play basketball, not well, but we do. I shouldn't say that. It's not as big down here, so it's not as popular.
I'm just making, I wasn't making an assumption that you didn't have basketball. I just was curious if.
I guess, like, it's you guys do basketball and football, we do netball and rugby.
Yeah.
Same but different kind of thing. You guys do baseball, we do cricket. Same but different.
Yeah. I was thinking about when you were sharing earlier, that it's funny. So as I said, I don't have experience in sobriety, being married or being a parent, because I got sober before either one. So I think about that challenge of we say like that it's hard at first, right? Like the stuff you're supposed to do to help you get sober, those actions. And I think about that, the challenge of, like you were saying, as a sober, having a birthday party or having things that you think of. Because it's funny, because I can't imagine any of those involving drink. I think all this time to myself, like, wow, I can't believe parents drink at stuff like this. But hello, I drank at everything I did before I got sober. But how hard that is, because the balance of changing people, places, and things, right? And like, you can't, And another way I was super lucky. There are many aspects of my story. Like I didn't get to have kids till I was older. Things that like my parents were older grandparents. Like there are drawbacks, of course, to however your story goes.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to change. Like my whole life was rebuilt. Entirely different state, different career, then marriage, then parent in sobriety. So changing people, places, and things and taking hard actions and like basically whether it's saying no to things, whether it's like friendships that weren't the best or wasn't too hard for me. But I think for any of us, right, that's something that we have to look at, I think, because I've seen time and time again people not stay on the course they want. And even me, like one of the reasons I didn't stay sober for that is I stayed in that relationship, which I knew wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
It's hard. It goes back to that. It's not fun at first. It's hard. It's not that fun, but then it gets really good if we can just hang on and take some of those actions in the beginning. I don't know if that made sense, but I was just thinking about that when you.
Yeah, totally. I think it's amazing. I actually don't know if I've met anyone that got sober pre-kids. So this is,
Oh, wow.
I don't know, almost mind-blowing to me that you managed to do it before having kids, because kids are such a, or parenting, the mommy wine club, or it's a big thing.
Big time. My dog is licking. Sorry.
I've seen him like walk in, lay down.
Yeah, because I mentioned this before, probably on the podcast, but I mentioned this before about how like I would hear your story or I would hear somebody else's, and I can think of a couple people early on who are like, oh, I'm so happy. Like either they didn't have kids yet or they had a 1-year-old or whatever. My kids will never know drinking me, or they'll never know me with alcohol and all that, because they got sober, alcohol free before they would realize it. And I was like sitting there, great. I can't say that. That ship has sailed. My daughter was like 11 when I was working on, when I say I started, even though it started much before that with half-assed attempts. Half-hearted, I'll say. Both half-hearted and half-assed. But I'm like, shit, I can't say that. Now I feel bad. And then I had to reframe it. Sorry. To be like, at least now she can see the change. She can see before and after. And I am very grateful for that. And I think that has just me doing this and me doing it the way I have. It's impacted the way she looks at alcohol and the way she approaches these things.
Yeah.
So I am grateful for that. Early on, I was like beating myself up because I'm like, I felt lesser than these other people because the way they said it, but they didn't mean it that way. I'm not saying nobody means it that way, but we always think about ourselves. So I took it personally, even though I wasn't even talking to somebody. It was like an Instagram reel I saw or something, pre-reels probably. And I took it personally, and that was, but I internalized that. But then I had to figure it out for myself. I had to do the work and sit there and talk to my therapist about it. I just saw it this week, and then we talked about it, and then maybe I journaled about it another time, or just dumped some thoughts down on it, and it's processing it. Yeah. But
it's like we have a way of turning anything into a way to beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like 100%, my biggest things are there are advantages to having, I was 37 and almost 40, like 2 months shy of 40 when I had my kids. That's not as old as it used to be. Like it's becoming more popular, but most of my preschool mom friends are like 10 years younger than I am. And like my kids' grandparents, we lost my dad last summer. My kids were 4 and 7. And I'm like, but I didn't start that season of my life until I was older. And that's just part of what goes with my story. And I love how you said, it's like everything is an opportunity to turn it around to self-reflection, right? And growth for the better.
And there is no set way to do things. Even though we think there is, we have, we do this and this is how life goes. And it's there's no playbook. We can do whatever we want. And just because it's I'm doing something different than the norm or what it used to be or whatever. Yeah, totally. So what?
Yeah, I grew up in I don't know whether it was intentional. Definitely wasn't intentional, but I grew up in that mindset of you go to university, you get a career, you get married, you get a house, you have kids, and then you have a happy life. Tried to do that, didn't fit very well with me, so I wasn't happy for many years until I realized there are different ways of doing things. And that's something I'm big on teaching my kids of, You don't have to go to university if you don't want to. Sure, it's great, but if you want to get a trade, as long as you've got some kind of career and something that brings you joy and brings you income, would be ideal. But you don't have to get married. You don't have to have kids. You don't necessarily have to buy a house. You could be a nomad and travel. You could have a motorhome and like a bus and just, I don't know. Let's find what brings you joy and create your life around that, because this cookie cutter way of living doesn't work.
And I think that, like, for me at least, one of those many like multiple ripple effect gifts of sobriety is being able to be so much more aware and intentional about my parenting. Like you said, so much of it has been obviously processing. I joke that for addiction stories, my family was like pretty mainstream. I don't have a lot of addiction. Like, my parents were great. They really were. But there were a lot of emotional things that weren't really there and that fed a lot of my wiring for anxiety and performance and expectations and fear of failure and all those sorts of things that played into my substance abuse story. As a sober mom, and I get to be very intentional about, I actually prioritize my children's emotional health more than granted, they're not like in high school yet. I was going to say more than their school performance. Those preschool grades are tough. But honestly, that's what I mean that. Like, for me, social emotional health, emotional intelligence, healthy coping,
Yes,
the way that we
resilience.
have resilience, those sorts of things are more important to me as a parent than I would have probably ever thought had I not gone down this path of like recovery.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're struggling with. My youngest, she's not struggling with, but something we're navigating at the moment with my 10-year-old is some resilience. She's always been the good girl. She's unintentionally, we've got some good girl conditioning going on there. And now when people do the wrong thing at school, she's still at primary school, she'll call them out on it, and then she's getting picked on for
Being a tattletale.
being a tattletale. And she's like, but I'm just trying to do the right thing. And we're like, yeah, I know, but sometimes it's okay to do the wrong thing. She got told off, probably for the first time in her entire schooling career. She got told off for talking in class, and she came home and she was in tears. She sobbed herself to sleep, and we were like, babe, I don't care if you get told off for talking in class. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. You've got friends. That's good.
Yeah.
So, rewiring that I always have to be good, or I always have to do the right thing, to build some resilience of, it's okay to do the wrong thing. It's okay to get told off. It's not the end of the world. It's hard work, though, building that resilience.
That's
Any
awesome.
tips?
Yeah, I just think, I think as parents, like, we have this innate, and this is where my inner control freak comes in, because I am very much a recovering perfectionist and a recovering control freak. Every day, still working on it for years, obviously. And nothing brought those out for me more than having kids. And it's so hard because it's, on the one hand, we want our kids to do great. We want to protect them. We want them to not experience like the horrific realities of the world or whatever. But it's, the tough stuff is how they learn, right? It's like how they grow. It's how they, so it's really freaking hard. I still struggle with, not as much, I'd say, as I see a lot of people, like the idea of, do I want my kids to be happy, or do I want them to be strong? It's not my job to be happy. It's my job to teach them how to like be good people who can hopefully navigate this world. And for me, navigate it without drinking or pills. That's my biggest thing. You guys feel as a parent, but my husband isn't. Obviously, we're genetic double hitters. So we're very aware of that, the genetic nature of addiction tendencies. And yeah, it's like just really trying to help them be comfortable, like you were saying, with the uncomfortable stuff and embracing, I don't want to say failure, but yeah, that's where we learn. We learn through our mistakes. And I did not grow up with those messages. I grew up with, you do things the right way.
Yeah. Always strive for 100%, and if you get anything less than 100%, then that's not good enough. That's the conditioning I got. Huge standards to live up to.
That's I try, and I'm big on this word maybe now, because it's when something doesn't go right and everybody's freaking out, or I would do that before, I still do it, who am I kidding, but something goes wrong. And my daughter might be like, oh, yeah, that's it. I'm not playing soccer next year. I'm done with this. I'm not going to do it. And then maybe the coach doesn't, and this is just a simple example, but maybe the coach says, okay, I'm not coming back next year. And this happened. Oh, this is going to be awful. Who the hell's going to come here? Who's going to be the next coach? And I'm not going to play and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. Like we don't know. And just let's calm down. And what can we do now? Nothing, because it's November or December. And guess what happened? Somebody, the new coach, she's super excited about. So it's we don't know, and you know what? It could have went the other way too, and it could have been somebody you're like, oh, I don't want to play for this person, but we just don't know. But we get ourselves so bent out of shape in advance that worrying about it and trying to get the right answer and trying to do the right thing, but we can't control it, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do myself. And for her, it's like we can't control pretty much anything. Like I'll say, like we try, we think we control more than we actually do. But yeah, all we can do is what can I control today myself, and that can be doing good in school or whatever. But it's not the end all be all either.
Yeah,
I'm going off.
That should be your word of the year, Kev, for 2026. Maybe for 2026. Maybe it'll be mine. Oh, maybe.
Yeah. There you go.
That's so true.
It's already like right here. So
yeah,
maybe
it's already one of the words that's tattooed on me. I have all kinds of reminders.
Yeah, it's like I joke though that I never thought I was a control freak. I had no idea, but I think for me at least, I spent all of my time up here, but also ruminating on the past for whatever reason, analyzing, beating myself up, second guessing, wishing things had gone, or projecting about the future. That's how my mind, even still, and it's gotten so much easier in time and with the repetition of different habits and actions and practices and recovery tools. But I still really struggle, like Kevin, what you were saying, with comfort in the unknown. It has certainly gotten a lot easier, but it is not innately a comfortable place for me. And life is the unknown, right? Health, our kids, our future, how our kids are going to turn out. Yeah, I truly believe that like I can do everything right. I know with 100% certainty, I can do everything that I think is right. And either or both, my kids could totally derail. And I have to be able to like be okay with that uncertainty and know that I still need to work on keeping myself strong and sober through that, if that does come one day. And that more importantly, whatever that if scenario is that I'm so scared about, because there can be a number of them, there are other people who have gone through it who will help me.
Yeah.
And only sobriety has given me that perspective. And that also helps me a lot.
I think that's really interesting. I think a lot of women in particular, I can't speak for men, but I think a lot of women have that kind of thought process, particularly in the afternoons or in the evenings, that witching hour where you're ruminating over the day that was, or future tripping about what's going to happen, or just recycling all those thoughts in our heads. And that, I know for me, that was a trigger for me to drink, to wind that down and calm down the future tripping and the ruminating and the going over everything over and over again. And that's that whole Mummy Wine Club thing and the witching hour.
Yeah.
There was a question here somewhere.
I will jump in while you're thinking of that though, and I'll speak for the men that we do it too.
Okay, cool. Good. I guess the question is, what kind of things do you suggest to women who are, or men, people who are, everyone who is navigating that thought process of, or that Mummy Wine Club, or that wind down? I need a glass of something to wind down.
Well, that's a really good question, because while like I said, for me, I was sober long before that world, but I see people who are struggling with it, or hear from people who are struggling with it, and know how prevalent that is. And I don't think the suggestions are really any different than what they were for me, even though I didn't have kids and I wasn't married back then, when I was struggling with those feelings or those thoughts or those cravings. First, it's the people, places, and things. Like, I'm sorry, but somebody who's trying to stay away from drinking, who's in early sobriety, and they really actually are trying not to drink, really has no business being around neighbors who are having wine and cheese. Like they just don't. Eventually that can be a safe place if you want it to be. And those are real friendships. But not in the beginning when you're raw and you're struggling. So there's a little bit of that, being smart about what's good for your sobriety versus what isn't, what is leaning you towards a drink versus away, but also who you surround yourself with, like that community piece. Like you have to be able to get those thoughts out. Yes, journaling is great, but even connecting with another person on them. A text like, hey, this is the time that I want to drink, or I want to play the drink through. I used to have a note card in my wallet I called it like my greatest hits. And it was like a short list of the horrific, embarrassing things that had happened, or the sort of consequence lows, or just idiotic moves of my last year of drinking. And it would be like, oh my gosh, that is the reality of when I drink. But the problem is, if that's only like a couple glasses of wine and nobody's really hurting, you're going to bed, you're getting up, you're taking care of your kids. Okay, like how do you really feel? Are you feeling like crap? And again, that's where being honest with somebody has to come in. I think that you need some kind of accountability and community. And that's certainly what I did. I was famous for texting people after I drank for a while.
Yeah.
Until I got sober. Then I started being more honest about how I was really feeling in the moment. But the last thing I'll say on that is being smart about changing your routines. So if that's taking a family walk, if that's doing a workout, easy light yoga workout, if that's not cooking dinner, because cooking dinner is a trigger, because for a lot of people it is.
Yeah.
So it's like changing the routine to set yourself up for success. And that's the case for any wellness habit, really, not just, you know what I mean? It's like you have to be smart about how to set yourself up for success, whatever that is. And that's definitely the case for that witching hour drink thing. And to trust that like it will get better. Like what you said, Kevin, it's like whatever you're struggling with, you have to believe that all these thousands of people who claim that they've been there and that what they experienced and how they got to the other side of it, that you're not unique, you're not different. And that will probably be true for you too, if you just trust.
Yeah. And like you said, be smart about it. When you were talking about like, just, okay, maybe you have to disconnect from your regular friends or
for a little while,
whatever. Yeah. But being smart about it. Cause I remember early on, we were supposed to go out with a group of friends and I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not ready for that. But then one couple was like, hey, do you want to go out to this restaurant? And the specific one, I was like, okay, I've never been there before, so I don't have any memories from it. And we don't really hang out with these two that much. Kids are going. I'm comfortable not drinking in that situation. But my wife knew what I was doing and I could pull the eject cord if I needed it. And it was fine. But it was like and if it wasn't, I have to learn from that, right? And I have to be like, you know what? Maybe I just don't go to those situations for a little bit. That doesn't mean I'm never going to go to a restaurant again or a bar, right? But for now, I need to protect myself as best I can. And that can mean, and I think that's one of the difficult things. Again, it's like trusting other people is we immediately go to worst case scenario. We talk about the worry and the future tripping and all that. We immediately go to what? I'm never going to go out with friends again. I'm never going to go to a restaurant again. I'm never going to go over to his house again and stand on the back deck. And while we like hang out and talk. And no, I wasn't saying that.
Yeah.
But for now, maybe you don't.
I still remember, I always share this, like when I said early on in a recovery meeting, so I'm supposed to not drink at my own wedding? Like, how is that going to happen? I was genuinely concerned with this. And I remember somebody saying, are you engaged? I was single. I was like, right now. And today I just laugh about that because one of the things I love to share the most is the only thing I can't do is drink. I can do everything else. Yeah. There were a lot of things I couldn't do in the end of my drinking because my world was so small and I wouldn't have gone to a restaurant that didn't serve alcohol, even if it was like a Michelin star restaurant. And I'm a huge foodie because why would I go somewhere that doesn't serve alcohol? I couldn't have imagined I couldn't imagine doing anything earlier in sobriety without drinking. But it's like now anywhere, traveling, dinners. I remember going out to dinner in early sobriety and it was like I was like, oh my gosh, this is weird. Don't people wonder why I'm not drinking? No,
Yeah,
nobody
and
in
no
the
one
restaurant
doesn't.
wonders. And that's the other thing that this is a close to home, my heart topic, because I have friends who I see struggle with this. Like this, when you try to live a happy, sober life close to partying, problem drinking life, like all the time, it's not a good mix.
Yeah.
It's really not. And I used to think the whole world was either people who were sober, who like had to be, or they were partying and drinking like I was and my friends. I didn't know that there's this whole world. I live in a huge neighborhood. We have a huge pool community. It's amazing how many people are not recovered alcoholics, but aren't getting wasted all the time. Like I'm in a book club and everybody knows my story now. I'm totally open about it. And some of them will drink occasionally. People are drinking or they'll have a drink or two, but like none of them, it's not the kind of book club where people are getting wasted. I'm not going to be in that kind of book club because I don't want to be.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to me how much of the world is doing amazing, fun things without drinking. But when we first get sober, we don't know that exists.
Yeah.
Because we assume that like we lived, everybody's drinking while they do it. I took a drink to my vet, like literally.
That's one thing I've never done. Wow.
Like vitamin water and vodka, like literally, like I needed to have a buzz to go to a vet appointment. Why not? It made sense at the time. But
yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
I am last year, oh gosh, a couple of years ago now. No, I don't know. Anyway, recently I was down in Queenstown in New Zealand, which is known for its vineyards and its wineries. We're at husband's work conference and the actual like annual award ceremony was at a vineyard, which I surprisingly did okay. I went and got the Reframe brand tattooed on my wrist like the morning of the conference morning of the event to remind myself that I can be alcohol free because I think I was 4 or 5 months sober then. Anyway, that's not the point of the story. But after that, we went out with his work colleagues. I went to this beautiful vineyard who did this, 10-course degustation, fancy, amazing. Everything looked like a picture kind of food thing. And it came with a wine pairing with the 10 courses. And everyone did the wine pairing. And I said to the waitress, oh, I'm actually alcohol free. I'm sober. And she's like, oh, we have this amazing mocktail pairing that we can do for you. And they paired mocktails with the whole menu. And I was like, this is the kind of thing we want restaurants doing because you don't need to pair alcohol with food. It can be mocktails. And sometimes it was like soda water with wine with a course because they were like, this is a refreshing dish to refresh your palate. And it was awesome. I was like, man, if more restaurants could do that, do it.
There's such a push now, which is a great thing. I'm sure you guys see this where you live, the mocktail movement. We have an NA champagne bar, I think, like around here now that I actually haven't been to. It's like I'm all for the sober curious movement. Obviously, I think anybody who's evaluating their relationship with alcohol, that's a good thing because the reality is it is a carcinogen. It's horrific for our health. I laugh. I can say that now because it's like a non-issue. But I didn't have a problem for a long time, even though I knew it's a great, I say that sobriety has become like trendy. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think there's more celebrities are getting vocal about sobriety and the health impact. The health factors are becoming more in the media and people are realizing, right? So there's this whole like push and I think it's great. I'm amazed at how many people have stopped who I know who will tell me like, oh, I'm not drinking, or I just don't like how it makes me feel, or I'm in perimenopause and it's not great for my hormones. So I don't really drink anymore. And I'm like, wow. But it's becoming I think that's amazing that you had that experience at a vineyard. I love that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more of a health focus. I think that's what I'm seeing from the outside world is that people are not necessarily giving up alcohol because they have a problem or they're an alcoholic, but there's more of this health focus of, oh, I'm curious about how this is going to impact my sport performance or my perimenopause or my general sleep or
anxiety.
That it's a carcinogen. Anxiety, huge one. Yeah,
there's just more. The more and more information that comes out, right? That's one of my big pet peeves is like the nutrition labels. There's no nutrition label on alcohol. And wait, let me see. I got a bottle of water here. No, there's no nutrition label on this water, but I think there is on the pack that it came in. And but there's nothing on a beer or something like that. And I think people like, even like something like that, and I know that's lobbying and everything that's keeping that off of it, but how is there not, we ingest it, and there's my Celsius here. I'm not drinking the healthiest stuff here. But
Great example,
10
Kit.
calories and all. I have all the information here of what's in it, and they have to put that on there. And I think it's bullshit that alcohol doesn't have that on there. And I do think people, and I said that once a while ago when I was hosting on 1,000 Hours Dry, and people were in the comments like, oh, it's not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to care. I'd still keep drinking. I'm like, yes, you would. That's fine. But you know what? A lot of people would think differently about it if they had to sit there and see that, because we're so programmed, I think, these days to look at those anyway, for better or for worse. Right? Yeah. But things like that, where just those changes, sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but like those things, it's all the health information, I think, coming out. And I heard somebody, book I read, I can't remember where this was, alcohol deadens our taste buds, right? And when we say we pair things with alcohol, or I have to drink, it's, I have to have this wine with this food and things like that. And they made a comparison of, it doesn't change the taste of the food. Milk and cookies, like that milk, when you dunk a cookie in it, it changes the food. It makes it different. When you don't have steak and red wine in your mouth at the same time. And I get, it's a simplistic view and all of that, but it does deaden your taste buds. They also talked about a study where all these foodies couldn't tell the difference between like boxed wine and really supposedly good wine. And that same group did a study on, I think, pate versus dog food, and people couldn't tell the difference.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's like in the restaurant industry, I'm thinking of, because as I said, like, especially when you're in New York for years and years, you just become like a food person. So I'm a major foodie. But it's funny you say this, because I've laughed, because I've been back to the city like 4 times, I guess, since I got sober, and 4 or 5 times. And sometimes I've been to restaurants and I'm like, gosh, this wasn't as good as I remembered. And I'll think to myself, and I'm like, it's interesting. Is my palate is different in sobriety, but also there's tremendous overlap in the restaurant. We all know this, and like substance abuse, the restaurant industry, and it's all part of this, like, more, I don't know. I think the health thing, though, what you said really struck a chord back to that, because I think people, it's amazing. It's one of those things where it's amazing to me when people, like, I was like going to the gym in my 20s. I tried to eat healthy. But when you don't want to look at that, but it's like amazing how many people, I see this in moms groups all the time, like Facebook moms groups, about anxiety. The anxiety thing really is what it is, some form of that, the mom struggles. And the first thing, honestly, if it's anxiety or depression, that somebody should be thinking about is, do I drink regularly?
Yeah.
And because a lot of people are, and they're not even thinking that is affecting their mental health. I get it, because I didn't for
years. And I was actually going to ask that earlier, because you had talked about anxiety. I'm like, did you use alcohol to bring down your anxiety? Because that's, I would assume yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to.
Oh, gosh, yeah. We say it's like you don't realize until you unpack it, really, in sobriety. But yes, I'm a social person and I'm extroverted. But for me, alcohol was definitely that eased the social anxiety. Because I always felt like everybody was smarter, everybody was prettier, all those thoughts.
Yep.
And whether it was work events, whether it was just out with friends at bars, oh yeah, 100%. Even in college, I used it for anxiety. And then it's like crazy. I literally had people telling me, and had therapists saying, you can't drink with this. Or
You're like,
how much do you drink? We try to go out a couple drinks here and there. But that's like really serious to be mixing with benzos, like on a daily basis, like life-changingly serious. Crazy.
And I put up the okay sign, because I was like, okay, yeah, sure, doc. Because I think that's what our immediate inclination is. No, okay, of course I'm gonna drink. That's what I do.
Lie to ourselves, even though, like, I lowballed how much I drank. And if I ever thought about it, I would get too freaked out, or I would think that was just a bad day. It got a little bit crazy.
I don't drink every day, so it's fine.
Just every day I'm not hungover. So you got sober, and that's Did that encourage you to become like a health coach? Because you said you're a foodie and you're interested in health and wellness and food and nutrition. And was it the sobriety that led you down that path, or were you always that way inclined?
I was always interested in that, only to the point of following health trends and working
Mm-hmm.
out. But I loved my early spin classes in New York, my hot yoga classes and all that stuff. But I would say there was a couple things. Sobriety was a key part of that progression, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
path. But then I did this shift and did pediatric speech therapy. So that started my awakening of, wow, all these kids are having food allergies or just like more and more stuff. It just seemed like I was hearing I did do the birth to 5 population early intervention. It's what it's called here in the US. And yeah, I mean, I guess I got married. And so then I was thinking about having a child. We were trying to have a kid, and I was an older mom. So it was the combination of speech therapy and what I was seeing and thinking, how much does diet, lifestyle, and environmental stuff impact any of these health issues? So it was then trying to get pregnant as an older mom and thinking, yikes, I need to keep what can I, like learning about what we put on our skin matters and
Mm-hmm.
role of hormone disruptors, learning about gut health. And then the third part of it was that my husband is 9 years older than I am. So he's 54, which we still can't believe. But which I still can't believe I'm 45, but that's a whole other thing. And he has now, granted, we have 2 older boys too, but he's 54 with a 5-year-old. And he was like borderline pre-diabetic blood work when we met. So
Wow.
that was the other sort of piece of it. It was like, wow, I have to start, like my eyes were first massively opened by diving into how much can I control my health, my baby's health, my likelihood of being able to breastfeed, my baby's gut, my baby's immune system, like all of it, right? And then my husband being like, yikes, we need to work on this stuff some. So all of that sort of morphed into a laser focus on what I call controlling the controllables, but not in a crazy rigid way, because I can't I'm just like not, I don't want to live like that. And I think earlier in my journey, in fact, when I was pregnant, when Parker, my oldest, was a little guy, he's almost 8 now. But I was in all these holistic moms groups and I was like terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I get the wrong bassinet? Or what if I get the wrong crib sheet? And oh my gosh, what does this certification mean? What does this certification mean? And it was like, calm down. That's like too much. I'm not going to live like that. So I would say I eased up a bit through the years since then. And then 2 years ago, I stopped seeing speech therapy kids when I had Chase, and then COVID. I'd started back, but then COVID, and that was hard with childcare. And then I was going to revisit that when he starts kindergarten this coming fall, but just from a time standpoint. But I ended up doing a health coaching certification program 2 years ago because I was like, I'm going to turn this into something, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I love this. And this is what I do for so many friends that I want to do more with this.
Yeah.
So I did the health coaching, and then I created Clean Coaching Mama, and then I've been doing a bunch of stuff with that since.
That's really awesome.
Sobriety is the foundation of that. Do you know what I mean? It really is, because I wouldn't be able to live authentically. I wouldn't be able to be intentional in the way that I am. I wouldn't be able to dig deeper into what I need to work on, uncovering motive, any of that stuff. And then obviously if I was drinking and hungover, then it would all be a wash. But so that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, awesome. So what you talked about, like fads when you were in New York, like maybe not just New York, but what are some kind of fad diets or fad exercise wellness things? Let's not call them diet, let's call them wellness things that you've seen come and go, that maybe you've tried and haven't enjoyed.
Like back in my 20s, and now granted, this is before I got sober. I laugh about this, but like the Stouffer's lean cuisine meat frozen dinners, or my roommates and I would make like dishes with laughing cow cheese, which is like horrifically processed fake cheese. The whole like carbs are the enemy, which granted, I'm very intentional about the carbs that I eat and cook with, but I don't track. Right now, there's a huge push. Intermittent fasting is huge. Macro counting is huge. I guess And obviously I grew up in the like fat-free era, which I don't know if Snackwell's made it over to New Zealand, but that was big here. I'm sure Kevin remembers.
Yeah.
I went through like that phase, the whole fat-free thing. And it's funny because I watch how my parents were influenced by all of these trends the years as well. But I've netted out on my personal philosophy and people will ask me, it's like they're so hung up on calorie counting or they're so hung up on macro tracking and I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian. That's not my wheelhouse to give specific advice, but I am very much of the mindset that whole real foods are our friend and limiting processed foods, limiting added sugar. Now, my kids eat Chick-fil-A way more than I'd like. They get dye-filled freeze pops at the pool snack bar. I am not, anybody who knows me or sees enough of my life knows that I'm actually pretty moderate on some of this stuff, but also very intentional about how I grocery shop, how I cook, what I eat. I believe that, and it's funny, is this about sobriety? No, but is how I feel, my energy level, my anxiety level, how optimal my hormones are all functioning. Is this all about myself? Yeah, it is, because it's how I feel, right? And it's about food as fuel. It's fueling my body with a lot of protein, a lot of fiber. Do I get into tracking all of it? No, but I do have like protein goals and fiber goals for my family. Do I obsess over them? No. But do I like to teach about them to my children? Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that right now at this particular moment, I would say the intermittent fasting thing, I'm like, it works for some people. I'm not personally a fan of it. It wouldn't work for my life. But yeah.
I think the big thing, and you touched on it, is how does it make you feel? So you can be doing some kind of exercise plan or eating plan or food plan, or how does it make you feel? Your body's going to tell you whether it's good for you or not, right?
Yeah.
Like husband went down a rabbit hole at one point of plant-based, that we had to be a plant-based family and giving up all animal products and what have you. And some people can do that really well, but I struggle with anemia. I got so horrifically anemic that I ended up having to go to the hospital and have iron infusions. And it was like, okay, cool. Some people can do this, but my body is telling me absolutely not. Yeah, we did that for a couple of months, and then I realized that wasn't going to work for me. Don't get me wrong, I probably could have figured out how to get more iron in my diet naturally and whatnot, but it's still easier.
Like you said, some people, some people can do any diet or any way of eating, and that might work perfectly well for them, and that might be the thing they need, and it might be someone else's cause of a whole host of issues. So there is no one way. And intermittent fasting, I've tried that before. It can work for some things. I liked it for various reasons when I did it longer, because I did feel like more clear-headed. I did feel good.
Yeah.
But I hear people who are looking to cut back or stop drinking, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to start doing intermittent fasting too. I'm like, let's not do that. I try to avoid that, because that's all you need is to make your blood sugar swing all over the place when you're also trying to cut back on alcohol. And whether that's making you hangry or whether that's whatever, you're just putting yourself at a disadvantage. Now, I've asked some people this who have done that. Do you do that all the time? And they're like, and one person was like, yeah, I do that. That's what I do, and I've done for years. I'm like, okay, that's what you're used to. But recognize that you might have some differences if you remove alcohol now, and go and kind of address that. But I like how you said our June challenge is the intentional June challenge. It's about being intentional, focusing on those habits, focusing on something small and all of that. So you had mentioned that with intentional with our choices and that, but I think knowing ourselves too. Yeah. Like I shared this with a group where we were talking about doing a challenge, and I was like, I'm not focusing on diet. I'm going to say I'm going to stay away from this and this, but my big change is I'm not going to eat on the couch. That was my diet change, because I know if I'm at night and on the couch, I'm going to mindlessly eat if I do that. So I'm like, that's the change I'm going to make. And I'm not allowed on the couch after 10 o'clock.
And I need to teach my kids that they're not allowed to eat on the couch.
And I think the other, like what you were back to the whole trends thing and kind of what you were saying as well, Kevin, is I think that like for me, it's helping people understand that wellness is it's all interrelated. And this is just my personal belief and my kind of passion, I would say, but right, that ideally, like, I don't want to be like obsessing over everything I'm eating, but completely neglecting stress or movement, like exercise. I'm a big believer in movement of some kind. It doesn't need to be a certain kind, but whatever works for you for optimal health. Obviously, some people it's not going to come as naturally, but ideally, painting the ideal picture, I guess. So yeah, I think so many of us can get focused on what the trends are, or like, well, I need to take all the right supplements, or I need to, and it's okay. But is there any reason to think, if you feel like, especially if you're anxiety prone, what's the role of stress reduction? What are you actively doing for stress reduction? Because that's a big deal. That's something, especially as busy moms, I have found meditation practices to be truly life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And I do not do them nearly as much as I want to. I can come up with every reason and every excuse in the book. Literally. I actually did one before I joined you guys because it helps me to just center. So if you think I'm amped up, just be glad you didn't see me without a meditation in. No, but it's, if you're, I don't know. And I think that's part of the holistic and the cleaner stuff too, is that I see people really agonizing over what to buy and this and that, and especially in the holistic moms groups, who are obviously, from what they're saying, not necessarily having regular movement, and definitely not rebalancing their life in a way that they can, whether it's asking for what you need, which again, I learned in recovery, being honest with yourself about how you're really doing. Again, learn that in recovery, not beating yourself up about it. Learned it in recovery, but working on stress. I think that's the biggest one, is that we all think like we have to eat. Yes, food, I think, is obviously the most important variable, but stress is a huge risk factor for everything. Everything. And our society is not running in a way that supports stress management. It's just not. And it's not going to be it's not going to be changing anytime soon, I don't think. And I think that segues into, again, like, what am I so passionate about? Trying. It's really hard, though, to teach my kids to check into how they feel and how their body's feeling. Trying to model breath work. Easier said than done with a 5 and 7-year-old. But you know what I mean? Like, even just planting seeds. I don't know. That's even you right there.
Yeah, even you doing it like in an area of the house that they can see you doing something like that. Right. Yeah, if I have my headphones on and I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, you can see I'm breathing, like, oh, my daughter walks past, oh, Dad's meditating right now.
Normalizes it.
And it always, because I always say to people, think about how much you picked up on these sorts of things from your childhood, right? Yeah. What and don't see, what was modeled, what isn't, what was explicitly taught versus implicitly absorbed, right? It's really powerful. And that's also setting ourselves up to be perfectionists and beat the crap out of ourselves. And I don't mean that at all.
Yeah.
But just awareness and a little bit of intentionality goes a long way.
Yeah.
That's
I think I remember saying to my daughter, she kept asking me questions and all this. And I looked at her and I'm like, Avery, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know the answer. I'm trying to figure this out too. Just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I know how to do all these things. So just like saying things like that, and because I could see she was getting frustrated and I'm frustrated because I'm like, look, there's no playbook. We're all figuring it out as we go. And just because I'm an adult doesn't mean that I have the playbook and I did all the
answers.
Yeah, I know all the answers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think even modeling that is helpful.
Yeah. Meredith, what kind of things do you do for self-care? What do you model to your kids? But also, what do you do that they don't necessarily, like, what feels good for you?
It's funny. I'm like, it's a full-time job. Ask my husband. I'm just kidding. I'm lucky in that I love to exercise. It's not hard. I actually have always enjoyed exercise, and it's very much a part of my mental health and just my day. Like, I get in some kind of movement. The minimum would be like a 30-minute walk with my dog pretty much every day. So I'm really big on, as I'm getting older, especially doing more strength training, and it just helps me feel stronger, really, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. What do I do that my kids see? Talk about how we eat. We really focus on food as fuel. But I also, this is the feeding therapist in me, I'm also like careful to not over focus on it too much. And that's a duality. It's like trying to be, quote, neutral about foods, but also, so
Yeah.
it's the balance of intentionality versus letting things go. We talk about meditation with them. They see me meditate. They know I love tapping meditations. I've done some with my children before. We are a part of it. We go to a church. We're involved in there, and they hear about our spiritual life. We talk about the importance of community. They see me prioritizing that. They know that I have my women's meeting. They always talk about my women's meeting. That's a women's recovery meeting. And I think I try to think about, like, when I can, again, sometimes better than others, finding the teachable moments, right? Like you were saying, Kev, to say, wow, sounds like we're doing swim team right now, for instance, which is a whole culture and world in and of itself. Whoa. And yeah, like an exercise in when we try new things or go to a new school, or we're actually going to a new school next year, both of our kids. That's even freaking me. Obviously, I think I'm more nervous than they are, but talking about things and normalizing, like you said, normalizing learning stuff, making mistakes, being gentle with ourselves, taking things, asking, I'll say to my kids, this sounds like an example of how important is it really? Because sometimes that's something I use as a repetitive phrase with them, because I can think things are all really important. And so I try to teach that to my kids. And it's my husband and I didn't get that message growing up, right? So it's like most things, and I say all the time, most things in life are fixable. Some things aren't, but most things in life are fixable. So things like that, like trying to weave. But at the end of the day, I'm a totally type A, former New Yorker, control freak, recovered alcoholic, trying to do all of this very imperfectly.
Yeah. I like how you say that, imperfectly, and trying. And that's the thing, because you're never going to nail it 100% of the time. And it's, doing what you can when you can, and reminding yourself that it's okay to not meditate every single day, or it's okay not to do an hour gym session every day. Sometimes your body just needs a walk. Sometimes your body just needs some yoga. Sometimes your body just needs, I don't know what it is. But not putting that pressure on yourself to be the perfect mom. Oof.
I know, it's so hard. And I'm a big fan of the repair conversation, which I think you guys hit on, but which is just a parenting, but which I also didn't get growing up really. But it's the ability, like you said, to be infallible, to apologize when I don't handle things well, to apologize when I lose my temper, when I use a loud voice, which doesn't happen that often. I'm more of a hothead than my husband is. And that's a beautiful gift, right? And that's teaching them healthy strategies. So
awesome.
I think that's a good place to segue into our what did you learn this week? Thanks, Meredith, for joining us today. And now we'll just close it out with what did you learn this week? This could be completely off topic, not sobriety related at all, just whatever. As Emma says, I was
today years old.
Thank you. I was today years old when I learned this. And it doesn't even have to be I learned it, but a little nugget that we're doing this week. I guess mine is my wife and daughter are out of town, which I know I hear this a lot, and this was huge for me. That was when that happened, when I was drinking, that was like a woohoo, what am I going to drink this weekend? And I would just hang out, maybe do some stuff around the house, but it was a time that I could just have no responsibilities and drink. And that was tough early on. And now I'm like, I look forward to it in a different way. I'm still like, all right, what can I do to relax and all of that? But last night I'm sitting there with the dog and I'm sitting there watching YouTube videos of random journaling, this guy talking about his journaling practice. And it's a photographer, like very popular photographer. I think it's Peter McKinnon maybe, but he went through his whole thing and he was going through the books he uses, which I have the same one, which is probably how it popped in my feed originally. But he's talking about his pens and like everything he does. I'm sitting there last night on Amazon order, and it's June 1st tomorrow. I got to set up my journal for the new month, and so that's my fun weekend without my wife and daughter is going to be the fact that I have all of the markers and the pens that this guy recommended.
Wow.
And I'm going to be setting up my journal. So I was today years old that I realized that fun, I'll say it nicely to myself, like fun can look like anything.
That's funny.
I'm having fun. I didn't say I was cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
that?
I was today years old when I learned Kevin is a cool dad.
Kevin is a lame ass who's going to journal on a Saturday night. But no, actually, I might go out by myself to a movie, which doesn't sound any better. But these are all the things that I want to do. That's the thing. It's what do I want to do? I still have to figure out what I'm going to order for dinner. So there's all these things that, I don't know what my nugget is there, but all I know is I'm excited about all my pens that I got to try out because they came while I was right before the men's meeting started, and I have not gotten a chance to play around with any of them. So
I like it.
Nice.
I like it.
So lame. I'm the one that edits this. We may only have Emma and Meredith's nugget show up
so
in this.
You can't edit out your nugget.
I'm gonna re-record it with something really cool and just put it in after the fact.
I don't have anything cool. Do you want me to go or you, Emma?
Yeah, Meredith, what's your nugget? Do you have a nugget?
Yeah. Okay, so my nugget pales in comparison to that.
I set the bar low.
I don't even know why this popped into my head, but I think I was like, gosh, what even happened this week? What did I even do? I can't even think. But I think my nugget is that, so you guys know I live in North Carolina now. I live in the Raleigh area. And my nugget is that it can be cold and like 65 degrees in North Carolina at the end of May when it's almost June, because I'd never known that was possible. And my kids are doing swim team and they have time trials on Tuesday, and I want them to go practice. Like, we've had multiple practices canceled because we've had rain and storms, but I'm not kidding. It was like 65 degrees at the pool the other day. So that's not exciting at all. And I probably could come up with something better, but who knew it could be that cold in North Carolina in the summer? And I was thinking about it because after this, we are going to go to the pool and hope that it's warmer today and they can get a little swimming in so we can get ready. But, I know the nugget and the tie to recovery in that I had was that it's a reminder that I'm not in control. You can't control the weather. And I feel like I am constantly experiencing reminders of just how little I can control and getting more content with it. So that's the blessing.
Love that.
Yeah, it's what I don't know. I'm learning American geography. It's been a crash course since joining Reframe for sure. But in my mind, the Carolinas, it's like always hot and sweaty and humid and always hot.
Yeah.
In my mind, but clearly not.
Yeah. But not
clearly
as cold
not.
as the Northeast. Yeah. We don't always get a snow, which is annoying. But
it's sunny.
I can't believe it snows in the Carolinas.
Sunny and 52 today here in Cleveland.
Oh, really? It's 52?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It says 56, feels like 52. I always get the feels with.
Oh, that's pretty cold. So you would, that's obviously not swimming pool.
Perfect Kevin weather.
Yeah, I like
no, because my daughter is a lifeguard and she started at a new place and they had adult swims this week. And I'm like, it's an outdoor pool, right? She's like, yeah. It was like, it's like 50s and 60s. And she had to, I'm assuming the pool is, but she had to go at like 6:15 in the morning and she came back at after 11. And I'm
was she blue?
She was fine. I'm like, so how was it? How many people showed up? Nobody showed up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you got paid to sit there and do absolutely nothing. But yeah, I'm like, that's why I said, I'm like, is it outdoors or indoor? Because I'm like, are people going and swimming in the pool? But yeah, apparently.
Oh, they've had practice when it's been cold. Like my son, my little one, got out of the water and started sobbing. He swam his little, like, however many yards and got out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? He was sobbing.
Yeah.
He was like,
so cold. Oh, poor little dude.
Anyway, it'll be hot before you know it here, though. So we'll be good.
And then I'll be dying to get in the pool. Yeah. So my nugget of the week, I guess I'm still ruminating about my recent trip to America. missing it, wishing I was back. I took my mum to Costco yesterday. We only have one Costco in New Zealand. It opened a couple of years ago, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour drive from where I live. So I took my mum to Costco, and all we needed was a couple of chickens for dinner and a couple of other little things. Of course, we left with a $400 trolley full of everything. And then listening to Kevin's story about Amazon arriving overnight.
Oh, yeah.
My nugget is my bank account is very thankful that we don't have Amazon in New Zealand and lots of cost. No, we can get Amazon things, but it ships from Australia usually, and so it's like it takes a week. Yeah, so we don't have Amazon, we don't have Walmart, we don't have Target.
I didn't
have
know
one Costco. Yeah,
I thought they were like everywhere. Okay, wow. I bet they'll try.
I think as I say that, I think I heard or read somewhere that they're building an Amazon warehouse out by Costco, not far from where I live. So maybe it'll get
coming
better. For my bank account, I hope it doesn't come.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a slippery slope.
It is. I know. And COVID, like being at home and just ordering stuff and having it delivered, like that's not when it started, but that was when it really kicked up, especially like food delivery and all that.
Yeah. We can get stuff delivered. Like most shops will have an online section and you can get things delivered, but it's very rarely overnight delivery. It'll be a good couple of days or a week.
Wow.
Like I ordered protein powder on Friday and that still hasn't turned up, and it's Sunday. But it is a long weekend, so for New Zealand.
But yeah, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your story and tips with us. Do you want to let us know or let people know where they can find you? And we'll put this in the show notes too.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome. I've really enjoyed talking with you guys. You can check out my stuff on Instagram at clean_coaching_mama, Clean Coaching Mama. I also have a website, www.cleancoachingmama.com. So
awesome. Thanks, Meredith. Yeah, that's awesome. Clean_coaching_mama on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's easy to find. And if you type in Meredith Brierly as well, it's going to pop up.
We'll give you a pass. It's early in New Zealand.
Sorry. This thing was filled with coffee and now it's empty and it's still not.
For those of you listening, that was like a 32 to 40 ounce Stanley looking jug of
1.7 liter. Let's not do ounces, Kevin.
Yeah.
In my brain, no function goodly.
On that note, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Reframeable Podcast, brought to you by the Reframe app. Reframe is the #1 iOS and Android app to help you cut back or quit drinking alcohol. It uses neuroscience to reframe your relationship with alcohol and unlock the healthiest, happiest you. If you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share with those that you feel may benefit from it. I want to thank you again for listening, and be sure to come back again for another episode. Have a great day.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
That was a terrible bye, friends.
Would you like a redo on it?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1. Oh, wait. I'll just do it.
Back for another episode. Have a great day.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
That was better.
That's
funny
stuff.